Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 14 of season 2 of Ultimate Spider-Man, called The Incredible Spider-Hulk. First of all, quick apology for this review going up so late. Long story short, I had food poisoning, and that really took the wind out of my sails for the better part of almost 4 days, and then I had this huge thing at work, so... But anyway, here we are. So this is a episode written by Brian Michael Bendis, a guy who has written just an absolutely insane amount of Spider-Man, best known as doing the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. Really good, really good guy, and you can definitely see quite a few of his sort of trademark moments and humor in these episodes. I'm sorry, in this episode. And what I really actually like best about this episode is how it does such a nice job of drawing a parallel between Spider-Man and the Hulk. Two characters who, in general, are really very night and day. But they do sort of have that shared problem that's very well executed, and the emphasis on this is very well executed in this episode. That they're both characters who want to do good. They want to help people, but because of circumstances are constantly shunned and maltreated by the very people that they want to help. And I like that over the course of the story, Spider-Man realizes that as bad as I have it, people are sometimes willing to take a chance on me, to take a leap of faith. That never happens with the Hulk. And it's a genuinely sad and somewhat profound moment when you realize that, again, nobody ever really takes heaven and earth to move for anybody to give the Hulk a real chance. So some real credit to Bendis there. He really raises an absolutely excellent character point, and this episode really highlights it in a very, very well done and generally enjoyable way. Now, I also like that this episode used some of the show's continuity. We don't get a whole lot of that. They reference back to last season when Spider-Man switched bodies with Wolverine. And of course we get return appearances by Mesmero, who of course talks about those events. We get of course another round of Spider-Man versus Batroc. That's always fun. And we even get a guest appearance by The Thing, which is certainly cool. The Thing is easily my favorite member of the Fantastic Four. He's just a really great character to sort of throw into these things. And of course, The Thing versus the Hulk is just one of those classic Marvel slugfests that have happened, a dozen times or more over the course of history, but they never get old. They're always very entertaining. Now, another thing I like about this episode is how at the very beginning, when they explain what they're going to do with Mesmero and all this, Spider-Man is completely and utterly against this, and he spends a good part of that good portion of the early part of this episode just completely railing against what a terrible, terrible idea this is. And of course, he's completely right. I mean, he sort of feels like me when I'm watching this show sometimes, and just looking at just the complete and utter lack of good sense that some of the characters display. It's almost meta in a way, so I have to really give Bendis some credit for that one. Although you really have to think, why is it that nobody else at S.H.I.E.L.D. said, you know what, Director Fury, I gotta say, I think Spider-Man's right on this one. I mean, come on, you really think that Agent Coulson of all people would at least say, you know what, maybe Spider-Man has a point. No, everybody just goes along with what Nick Fury wants, and then, turns out Mesmero was somehow, in a way that is never explained, was controlling Nick Fury to do that. Yeah, so apparently everybody in S.H.I.E.L.D. is a freaking sycophant. Oh, boy. And of course, this sort of brings us to another big problem with this episode, is that nobody in this episode seems to, one, be willing to stop and listen, or two, to properly explain themselves. Now, Peter does try to explain the situation at first, but, if you just dude, just stop, sit down, like talk to a SHIELD security camera and explain the situation. You don't have to go blundering around the Tri-Carrier. That's a dumb idea, especially since you can't even walk properly. And speaking of dumb ideas, why didn't SHIELD apparently just take Peter's unconscious body home and stick him in his bed? Maybe it would have been better to just let him wake up at the helicarrier, or have a doctor wake him up and talk to him, make sure his brain isn't scrambled. I mean, I'm sure they had a doctor look him over, but he's gonna wake up. He's gonna be horribly disorientated and wondering what in the world happened, and just leaving him there in his bed to wonder, like, to not know what happened. What a bunch of dicks. But of course, logic must be sacrificed for comedy on this show, as always. Hey, you know what? Where the heck is Bruce Banner in this version? I mean, he is kind of an integral part of the Hulk mythology. I mean, when I was watching this episode and I realized it was kind of be like a Spider-Man Hulk story, I actually, like last time we had a Spider-Man Hulk story, kind of wanted to see Bruce Banner just so we could see how he and Peter would bounce off each other. But again, we don't get that. Now, one thing that I did like was the brief scene where you see Ava interacting with the Hulk, and I really like that part where like she's going to explain to him, like, yeah, I'm Spider-Man's friend. And Hulk just kind of, like, in Peter's body, sort of arches an eyebrow at her and gives her that look and kind of goes, "Friend?" It's kind of like when Wolverine was in Peter's body and started hitting on Mary Jane. I guess Ava's apparently more to the Hulk's tastes. So I actually kind of wish that they'd played around with that a little more. I think it could have been quite amusing. But, yeah, you take what you can get sometimes. Another thing that I liked in this episode is we actually get to see Stan Lee, in his role as Stan the Janitor, stop and climb up on Stan's soapbox and start going on a rant about the Hulk. Now, if you don't know the comics, Stan's soapbox was the name of the columns that Stan Lee spent years and years writing for Marvel Comics, where he would just talk about whatever was going on at Marvel and just sort of be Stan Lee. So again, that's a real nice little shout out to the longtime comic book fans. And also, once again, we get to see the heroes of our tale going around and horribly endangering the people of New York City for no logical and discernible reason. I mean, come on, the Thing really should know better. And SHIELD, if you're going to send in the Thing to deal with the Hulk, maybe you should make some effort to evacuate the civilians in the area first. Yeah. So, despite my frustrations with this episode, I mean, let's not mince any words. Any sense of reason and logic and good sense, forget about it in this episode. But is it fun? Do we get to see some really interesting and cool interaction between Spider-Man and the Hulk? Does it have some nice highlight a really nice character parallel between these two characters that isn't immediately obvious, but when you stop and think about it, makes perfect sense? Do we get to see a generally speaking pretty cool bunch of action? Well, yeah. So, while I certainly do have my quibbles with this episode, at the end of the day, I did think it was fairly fun. So, with this show, I'll take that. Anyway, folks, that's all I got for you this time. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and of course, you can follow me on Twitter at HoosierJedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.